Like, think about what's going on with the lawsuits, the media's portrayal of what real estate is right now. And so your friend will come up to you and be like, hey, is real estate really for you? It kind of seems like they're going through some, like, are you sure you want to do this? It's not going well. You haven't really done a lot of sales. And by the way, they might want what's best for you. But in that moment, what's best for you is not to hear that negativity. Connecting, elevating, and inspiring. That is what we aim to do at Real Producers. And if you look at everything we touch, whether it's the events, the magazine, even our podcast, that is the goal. And so for the show moving forward, we're going to primarily have the main flagship product be interviewing top realtors who have been featured in the magazine, and then bigger names in the space, whether they're authors, speakers, coaches, and just sharing inspiring stories, but also stories that are very relevant to what's going on in real estate at that time. We're also going to pepper in some other podcasts where I'm just going to share what I've learned in the last 10, 15 years as I've navigated the vendor side of real estate, but also sharing the stories of top realtors all over the country. I've learned a thing or two. And so today, I really want to dig into this concept of emotions as it pertains to sales. Most of you know, if you've been listening to the show long enough, the magazine was created by a knife salesman, right? I got into real estate the way everyone does, which is selling Cutco knives. And when I first started in Cutco, I was not very good at it, at least the actual displaying of the knives and the selling of the knives. I went through training, and if you've done the presentation with a college kid before, if you haven't, you should. It's great. But they teach you in training to read the manual, because I was 19 at the time, and I had no prior sales training. And so you kind of get away with it as a college kid. So you go, my first appointment was with the piano teacher at our church. And I was wearing a tie, which I thought was super classy. Problem was the tie, when you're trying to sell knives and handle scissors and stuff, it gets in the way. So it was a pretty discombobulated sales presentation. I couldn't cut the penny, which is like one of the biggest parts to like impress them with these knives. I put the scissors on their table. I was like pushing so hard, I almost broke her table. She's like, I get it. Yes, it's please stop breaking my stuff. And then the part where you compare their knife, which is typically a lot more dull than the brand new Cutco knife, she had the same knife. She bought Cutco like the year before, and I didn't know that. Well, I just kept reading. So I had her cut the rope first, went through in one take, and then she did mine, went through in one take, and I just kept reading. I'm like, see, wasn't that better? And so it was pretty comical. It was comically bad. But at the end, I sold like $300 worth. Now, she probably felt bad for me, but I felt great. And so as I was driving home, I busted open the door and I said, Mom and Dad, I'm the greatest salesman in the world. And they laughed at me and rolled their eyes, but it was fun. Then I had in my sights the second appointment, and that was with my aunt and uncle, and it was 2 doors down. So I walked 2 doors down to my aunt and uncle's house, and I was infinitely better at that appointment. It was my second appointment. So I figured I did cut the penny. I figured out how to do that in my downtime. And I did a better appointment. Well, to my surprise, at the end of the appointment, they didn't buy anything, which they told us in training that would happen. But they also didn't give me any recommendations. And I was feeling pretty dejected dejected. And I walked back to my house and opened the front door, and I told my parents I quit. Now think about this. Within an hour of being the greatest salesman in the world, I found so much pain in the rejection of a no sale that I quit. Now, if you know the end of the story, 10 years later, I was still doing really well with Cutco, and that's when I created the magazine and everything changed. And so I figured out the emotion side of it. But to this day, there's still emotions. It's still personal when something like that happens. And I think about the difference between someone who's been in a business or been in sales a long time and someone who's just starting out, and how the emotions affect you differently. And the people that figured it out, that's how they've been able to go a long time. We had a realtor on a masterclass panel a couple weeks ago named Mike. Mike is currently the record holder for sales in Indianapolis as it pertains to real estate, 184 million on 180 deals. So he's averaging over $1 million sale price in an area where the average sale price is 300-ish. So he's over tripling the average sales price. He's a record breaker, record holder, and he's sitting at the masterclass and he says, I want you guys to understand something. Last week, I lost a deal. A nice little old lady called me and she said, Mike, I like you, but I'm going with the other guy because he thinks my house is worth more than you do. And so we're not going to go with you. And he said, that hurt. And he was a little emotional about it. He was upset about it. He didn't want to lose that deal. And when he said that, I was shocked because, you think once you reach a certain point, you no longer are suffering from the same emotions that we go through, but that's not true. The difference is the amount of time Mike let it affect him. And so if you think about the top people, the top tier salespeople, the top leaders, it's not that they don't experience the same pain, they don't experience the same thought process. It's that they don't let it impact their day. They're not sitting there licking their wounds and crying about one lost sale. In fact, it probably motivated him to fix a couple things about the way he communicated, and he went out and won a couple more sales because of that. And so for me, a couple things come to mind when it comes to emotions. The first one is we should be very conscious about who we're spending time with, right? We've said it before that, or you've heard it before said that if you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? You've heard that said before. You might not have heard it said like this. If you spend time with 5 alcoholics, you'll be the 6th. If you spend time with 5 negative people, you'll be the 6th. Now, conversely, if you spend time with 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th, and it goes on and on. If you were to write down the 5 people you spend the most time with inside and outside the business, I wonder what that would look like. And so sometimes we hear these things and we're like, yeah, I've heard that before. I'm good. I hang out with some really good people. And that might be true. However, it's possible that people within your sphere, people that you're engaging with on a regular basis, are actually having a more negative impact on you than you thought. Darren Hardy talks about this in the rollercoaster, Entrepreneur Rollercoaster, great book. And he talks about, he alludes to this type of crab. And there's this crab that is impossible to catch. He's super fast, super crafty. And he says that the only way you can catch this particular type of crab is because of this human quality that they possess. And you put this bait in the middle of a cage and you just let it sit. And a crab will come up, and if you try to go and catch it, you're going to scare him away. But you let him eat a little bit of the bait. And then another crab comes and another crab comes. Before you know it, a bunch of crabs are all feeding on the bait. But when they're done feeding, they kind of just hang out in the community. They stay there. Even when the bait is gone, more crabs start coming into this cage, right? And what happens is if you see one of the crabs try to get out, the other crabs will knock him out, knock him down, not let him get out of the cage. And if he persists, they'll literally rip off his limbs. And if he continues to persist even more, they will literally kill the crab. By the power of the herd, they all remain there. And so these crabs are caught by the thousands because of that. And that's the imagery he uses, is the fact that humans are the same way. Something happens when you enter the entrepreneurial roller coaster where people who aren't as bold or don't feel like they could have done the same, they don't want you. It's not that they don't want you to succeed. It's that they don't want to feel bad that you succeeded where they have not. And so if you leave a 9-to-5, we've had a lot of ex-teachers, 9-to-5, different desk jobs and things like that become realtors. And they talk about this where like not everyone understood it. They were like, why are you leaving? Because I went to 4 years for school to do this thing, but you got into real estate. And so sometimes it comes into your relationship where they'll come up to you and they'll say, hey, listen, especially with like, think about what's going on with the lawsuits and the media's portrayal of what real estate is right now. And so your friend will come up to you and be like, hey, is real estate really for you? It kind of seems like they're going through some, like, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, it's not going well. You haven't really done a lot of sales. And by the way, they might want what's best for you. But in that moment, what's best for you is not to hear that negativity. It's to hear, hey, stay the course, work the plan, make this happen. And so if you write down 5 people on this list and one of them is that someone you haven't identified that is negative before, but they are in fact negative in your business sphere, then you might have to have a really tough conversation with them. You might have to cut some people out altogether, or at least have the conversation that says, hey, listen, I'm trying to make this thing happen. And here's why. I need you to get on board or get out of the way for the good of your business and the good of your family. And so think back to the emotional state that Remington was in when he was the greatest salesman in the world from one sale and literally quitting when he gets no sales. Hopefully we find some balance in there. And what will come if you surround yourself with the right people is just that.